So I just want to begin by talking about a few of the software design goals we established early on in the organization. This is 16 years ago. Back then, it was still customary for business applications to rely on thick clients or a hybrid of thick client and a web overlay. But we felt a pure web-based approach made the most sense from an IT support perspective. This eliminates the need for desktop software updates with each new release and permits the application to run either on-prem or in the cloud. With security, we expected our clients would require a very granular level of control over the functionality that users would be given and which data users should be granted access. So we also realized that the way security was applied would differ greatly among organizations. So rather than forcing clients into a single static model defined by us, we instead designed our application to support a very flexible security model for controlling data access. And with regard to scalability, it almost goes without saying that deploying an enterprise solution that doesn't scale in terms of volume of data or number of concurrent users will soon find its way off to the recycle bin. And then next, we knew that having a clean, intuitive user interface would push training costs down and the adoption rate up, particularly among end users who would be in the system regularly. So keeping in mind the spectrum of users accessing the system, from the light non-technical user to the very savvy and sophisticated power user, we designed a system that would accommodate both. And this was achieved in a number of ways, such as using readily understood concepts like carts, allowing clients to name things to match their nomenclature, and in general, simply making information readily accessible within the system. Considering the large number of industries that we serve and the variety of configurations one might expect to encounter, we wanted to ensure that the implementation time that was fast and that ongoing support costs would remain low. So to accomplish this, we invested heavily into the back-end configuration tools so that power users could fully configure the system without any expensive software customizations. So it truly is a point-and-click configuration. And then finally, without the need for software customization, became a simple process, and clients would be able to take advantage of all the new features as they became available, rather than being locked into a product for years that couldn't be upgraded without the fear and risk of breaking their expensive customizations. Our architecture is pretty common for web-based enterprise solutions. So it's built upon the Microsoft stack, which includes ASP.NET, IIS, and SQL Server. And this architecture allows it to be hosted either on-prem or in the cloud, as I mentioned earlier. And we support a variety of authentication standards, including LDAP, SAML, Windows authentication, as well as the classic Forms authentication. We provide an extensive set of web services, providing the back-end integration with external systems, as well as launchable pages that can be embedded inside other web applications where needed. We've made a significant investment in our integrations with the law firm ecosystem. These include the INTApp suite, popular time and billing systems, and well-known document management systems. And these integrations provide a seamless transfer of data between the systems, affording users the ability to manage both physical and electronic records from a single location and to automate information governance policies. And here's just a couple examples of our integrations. Here's one with NetDocuments. And here's another with iManage. So our cloud solution has been architected to provide a very secure and scalable environment that virtually eliminates all IT overhead from the client perspective. So systems hosted in our cloud benefit from SSL encryption of traffic, full disk encryption of all data at rest. We perform daily encrypted database backups. We have local system redundancy and a full disaster recovery site that can be brought online within just a couple of hours or less. In addition, our environments sit behind 2 Barracuda firewalls, which actively monitor and route traffic and can provide added access restrictions such as restriction by IP range if needed. And really what this all means for our hosted systems is that there's no software or server maintenance required by the client. So we handle all of that. So there's virtually no IT overhead involved. And here's just a brief overview of our cloud topology. As I mentioned, we have our 2 Barracuda firewalls, and then our system sitting behind that, as well as our disaster recovery site, which is at a different physical location.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Next, I'd like to introduce Tim Klaus, who I mentioned is our implementation manager here at InOutsource. Tim has brought to our team a wealth of experience in information governance solutions, and we're so excited that he's here. Tim?
Thanks very much, John. Hi, everybody. I am Tim Klaus, and I am the implementation manager here for FileTrail at InOutsource. What this really means is that I'm deeply involved in the back end of our FileTrail implementations for all of our clients. Now, I've been doing these types of records migrations for more than 10 years now. And so I lead our team of engineers to do the day-to-day technical work that allows us to get our clients working with FileTrail. So what this really means is that over the years, I've encountered a lot of different records applications. It's usually because the firm's having a problem with it, or they've decided to replace it entirely. So I've got a lot of insight into what makes FileTrail different than those other applications that are on the market. And that's really why I'm happy to be on and asked to speak today. Don't get to talk about these things all the time. I tend to get excited when I'm talking about things from a technical point of view. And so I'm going to try and keep things at a fairly high level, or we could be on here for a while. So as Jamie was talking about, one of the things for us that is really the big positive is that FileTrail is a web-based application, and it is built using modern tools and modern coding methods. I'm partial, but I'm a big fan of the robust technology of the .NET platform and the SQL Server backend. The other thing that I don't think they mention a lot is that they also enhance their product by using some third-party tools for their web, which ensures ongoing compatibility with modern browsers. So as things evolve, they can continue to stay up to date. They're also backwards compatible with older ones. So the no desktop installs is a big piece for us. If you have a browser, you can get to the application. Also, you have mobile access right out of the box. Every one of us has our mobile phone, and many of these screens, depending on it, they will scale to the size that you need to work with that device that's going on there. The cloud or on-premise solution is also a very interesting one for us, because FileTrail can be installed on-premise on your server. If you've got a cloud environment of your own, you can go ahead and put it there. Or, as Jamie mentioned, you can use FileTrail's own hosted solution that they built on Azure. The big part about that is that there's no difference between the application regardless of where you put it. It is the same application for your on-prem as versus the one that's in the cloud. So even at some point now, if that decision of where it goes with your infrastructure changes over time, you will always be able to simply migrate it by moving the database over and copying the web piece in, and you're off and running. So that, for us, we see a real flexibility there that we don't see with other applications. The other thing that we really like that kind of goes along with this flexible user licensing is the fact that FileTrail is the same application for all of your users. It is configurable based upon the user's privileges that you're in the system. So everybody goes in but sees their own display based upon the capabilities that they have within the system. This means also that because of the licensing levels that are there, they do base that on what you can do in the system. So what it means is that you can really expand the number of users who have availability into the system and do it at a much lower cost level. If you've got attorneys and paralegals that will almost never be in the system, but you really need to have available to them because there is audit trail of your information, you can really add them at the lowest cost, which can be less than $10 a year per user for those cloud installations. So It's very cost effective to provide a seat license for all of your attorneys that you're really going to need to be involved in your retention functionality. Now, the other thing that really works for us as well is the idea and the structure that they built FileTrail on of it being a configurable system, not a customizable system. So FileTrail is an entirely new record system. They didn't buy an old technology and change the logos. They built it from the ground up. Now, under the hood, what this means for us, it uses a reference data pattern. That means that the data inside the tables are described by other tables. And what it allows for is a very flexible system. Adding new attributes or new object types is really just as simple as going to the back end and using the point-and-click tools to configure them. Because that system is self-descriptive, the database structure itself, the schema, is the same for every client that's using that version of FileTrail. There's no customization of your system. You're not going to go in and find fields that have firm names in them, database queries that have another firm's name in them. It is all exactly the same. So really what this means then for IT is that when there are new patches or workarounds or rolling them out, it's a simple process. The updates from FileTrail come in two different forms. You have the small ones, which are minor versions and hot fixes, where they'll be rolling out new functionality. You also have some larger ones that are major versions, but the small updates are really easy to apply because they really are just copying files onto the web server. The major ones tend to be doing the same copying of files on there, but you might have to run a SQL script to update the database structure. Now, the thing about that, though, is that if you're running the exact same database schema as everybody else. So long term, the management costs and the IT support for when you have new items that are going on are almost non-existent. If FileTrail is doing it for you, they will go ahead and manage those migrations and updates for you on your own schedule. All of those facets are taken care of. If you do have an on-premise instance, though, update is very simple and requires almost no downtime at all. So this whole approach and this flexible configuration as an implementer makes things really nice for us, and I'll get to a little bit more of that in just a minute. But the other thing that we really like about this too is the reporting that's available. And the reporting is really a combination of powerful search interfaces that can be customized. You can build your own templates, identify what sort of information you want to search for, and then how you want that information to be presented at the end. Those can be handled by the end users. They can configure them themselves. You can configure it firm-wide. And so there's always very easy ways to pull that information out, and it's always a real-time look at the data that's there. And then once you've got that information, you can take and even download that information to Excel or to a PDF. Now, my big piece that I work with is the back end on the data part of the migrations. And what we're finding now at InOutsource is that our current implementation times are running at about a 6 to 9 month timeline. So from very start of the project to being live in the application. And that number actually keeps dropping. What we found is because of the flexibility and configurability of FileTrail, each new client is benefiting from the lessons learned from clients before. And we are always working to improve our repeatability and accuracy for every new client implementation. We document and build real project plans that actually continue to evolve, and we keep drafting them and keep using them. So our team is made up of subject matter experts with a long history of helping firms refine their policies and procedures in records and information governance. Most of the team has even spent some time in law firms carrying around boxes and folders. So we don't just view ourselves as a technical implementation partner. When we're working with a client, we can't help but include some best practice analysis and recommendations in every migration we involve ourselves with. And I think with that, our expertise in IG projects and implementations, they allow us to anticipate pitfalls when we're looking at your old record system. So even before we come through the door, we really know what to expect and where to look for those problem areas. From there, we can create a really aggressive plan that gives us plenty of chances to make your new FileTrail system work better than your old record system ever could. We've got a series of step-by-step plans that walk through the life cycle of every project. Some of them are internal checklists that we fill out. Some of them are ones that we hand to you and we will go with over time. And it's all handled by a really skilled group of project managers. So you don't have your records people talking to engineers and them not talking the same language. So our basic process that we do is that we'll come in and review your existing configuration and then perform initial data gathering to allow us to start configuring the system based on your data. So the nice thing about these implementations is that at FileTrail, we can make it available almost immediately. So you can start looking at the system and working with us to build these configurations out. So we will put together a base configuration, and then we will start working with it and tweaking it. And this is another thing that's very different about FileTrail than other systems. Most of the other systems that are out there require you to make all these decisions up front before anyone ever touches the system. And if you need to go back and make a change or tweak it, you tend to have to rebuild everything from scratch. It's not true with FileTrail. We can always go back through and massage and manipulate the information to get the configuration that your firm wants to use. Once we've settled on that configuration step that you've been able to review, we then have a repeatable process that we use to migrate data. So we have built a common database migration template, and we load your specific firm data into a database that is generic, and this is an in-outsource tool. So from there, if you have an on-premise solution, we can talk directly SQL to SQL, but when we're talking about a cloud installation, we need to get your data out of that environment and up into the cloud environment. And so we'll do that with a backup of that database once we brought it in, and then push it into the FileTrail system. We can start then loading all of your objects into FileTrail. And as we do that, we start with the high-level objects and then start moving our way down through. And at each step of that, as we brought new data in, because you have access to the system, you can review and vet that part of the migration, and we can make changes as we go along on the fly. So we'll give you an initial population sometime before your training starts, so you're looking at real data that belongs to your firm and in your configuration. And then as you're working with that, we will take delta changes during that time and bring in one or two before we actually have a go-live step. The final go-live step is just running yet another one of those deltas, putting it into the database, and then we hand those off to the FileTrail staff. If we're talking about a FileTrail cloud instance, we'll hand it to them. They will migrate that into your production server, and you are off and running. So if you've heard about this, we've been talking about this, your IT staff is minimally involved in that process because we brought all the technical resources on our team to help manage that migration from start to finish. When we do need your team's involvement for work involving things like data synchronization, access, those sorts of things, we have templates that we work with you to guide you. We don't just say, hey, we need this. So as you can tell, I'm very excited about working with FileTrail here at InOutsource, not just because it's a good product today, but they also continue to add new and really powerful features to the application. Because of the flexibility of the system, they're always thinking and always expanding. And so the development's a continuous process that just keeps making the application better and better. So I'm going to hand back over to Jamie because I think he's going to go through some more of those features on the product roadmap.
All right. Thank you, Tim. All right. So our product roadmap includes a number of exciting features, many of which are based on client feedback. And in fact, it's worth noting that we truly do value feedback from our clients and partners, such as InOutsource. And that has been reflected in the set of features built into the product today. We also don't like to make promises for features unless we're confident we'll be able to deliver those. So the roadmap I'll cover today are new features currently under development. The first one that I'll discuss is enterprise retention. And we have many clients today using our built-in retention workflow for managing the disposition of their physical records. And they frequently mention to us how nice it would be if they could use this exact same tool for records in their DM systems. And we've listened to those requests, and we've begun the development of this new enterprise retention solution, which will allow external repositories, including DMs and file shares, to take advantage of our retention workflow. So this will enable clients to utilize a single workflow to apply retention rules, conduct reviews, and automate the final disposition of both physical and electronic documents stored in those external repositories. And this integration will, with external systems, will also support lateral moves and returns to clients, which I'll discuss in a bit. Our enterprise retention solution will come out of the box with reporting capabilities that will consist of trend reports of creations and storage used, as well as forecasting reports of disposition and disk storage savings. Another feature under development is a more formal workflow for handling transfers and returns. We have a process for handling these types of transactions today, but we'll be adding additional workflows to help automate lateral moves and returns to clients, which will greatly simplify the number of steps involved and providing a clear audit trail. And as mentioned earlier with enterprise retention, this workflow, including lateral moves, will work with items in external repositories. So you'll be able to apply the same process to both physical and electronic records. And then lastly, last year we came out with several new reporting and graphing capabilities in the product, and now we're expanding on this to offer additional ad hoc reporting features that will allow users to generate nicely formatted, customized reports that are presentable for distribution and can be rerun as needed. It'll be possible to generate reports like this directly from their search results. So this functionality will enable clients to reproduce and improve upon custom reports they relied on in their legacy systems, and will lower IT's onerous burden of producing these reports, reducing the total cost of ownership. So this reporting capability will be available to all users later this summer and will require virtually no training. And with that, I'll hand it back over.
Great, thanks so much, Jamie.